for the Planning Commission for December 14, 2022. If you'd all, we have a roll call, please.
Chair DeBolt,
Present.
Vice Chair Lowe,
Here.
Commissioner Andrade, absent, Commissioner Quilty,
Here.
Commissioner Gross,
Here.
Commissioner Soffolcanic,
Here.
and Commissioner Zelmer.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, great. If you'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, at this time, we are going to open the meeting for oral communications. For any individual in the audience, you may address the Planning Commission and speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Please state, if you wish to speak on a item that is currently on the agenda, you can wait until then, and we will open it up for public comment at that time. Remarks tonight are to be limited to, and I'd like an agreement from our fellow commissioners, we'll make it 3 minutes, given the number of speakers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, and we'll work on through it. So at this time, if there's anybody here who wishes to speak, I have a bunch of cards. I haven't sorted through it to see if it's, I'm assuming it's going, a lot of them are for the item B. If you want to wait until then, if there's anybody else that's here to speak on something that's not on the agenda, this is the time to come up and speak. Okay, come on up, and please state your name.
My name's Tom Elmanson, resident of Parkwood over on Lampson. I'm sorry if I don't know where your agenda is, so
Oh.
this may be on the agenda. I have a couple of questions. In the affordable housing, quote, how much of it is low income? And the other question, are there redevelopment restrictions on that track or around there as far as developing further west, north to the golf course or the Navy golf course? Is that coming soon? Or because I read where somebody said on the council that this was a big surprise to everybody, which I've kind of hard to believe, but those are my two questions.
Okay. Any questions? It may be answered in the staff reports, but for us, the oral communications, just as for everybody here, is for the time for you to address. There is no give and take in this. So this is just the time for you to give us information and to speak. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak on something that's not on the agenda? Come on up.
Yeah, my name is Robert Smith, and I'm here to talk about what is being done about Farquhar traffic in the morning and evening. Has anything been discussed about that? It's horrible. We all know that it's being used as a cut-through from staying away from Roselle and Catella. How much longer do we have to put up with this? That's basically what I want to talk about or find some information about.
I think Ron Noda could probably direct you to the right commission.
Yeah.
But you're aware of it. I know you are, for sure.
I know you're my next door neighbor.
I know. Unfortunately. Okay, just wanted to make there is a problem.
But there is a problem. I think Ron can.
Sir, again, evening. I'm Ron. I'm the Director of Development Services. So we oversee the Planning Commission, and there's also a Traffic Commission.
Okay.
So that question should be more directed towards the Traffic Commission.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
they meet the second Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
Okay, but
Right here?
Right here, right? And so then again, it's the next scheduled one is the second Wednesday in January, 7
Okay.
p.m. but you could always email me. I can give you a card, and then I can detail in further
Okay.
detail of what,
Let me have one
what
of
is
your
being
cards.
done for Farquhar.
Okay.
Okay.
If not, Art will give you it. I know that.
All right.
Thanks.
Please give him the right number, Art.
All right. I'm looking through these real quick. There are a few here that are an item that is not on the agenda. We want to do Derek Boyer regarding water shortage for California, increase in taxes. That's not on our agenda, but if you want to raise a comment on that, go ahead and do that now, and then,
I don't know if this is perfect timing, but it's related in that a lot of the things that my neighbors, by the way, I'm Derek Boyer from College Park East,
right.
4380 Fur Avenue. And a lot of people are here to talk about the development, the future development across the street. And one thing that I don't think has been talked about much is just the general idea that what isn't being taken into consideration is just all of us are being told to use less water. And yet we don't know what we're arguing about the size of this project that may take, shape across the street. And it's high density, which means even more water usage. And that doesn't seem sensible to me at all. And it also doesn't make sense to me when you think about Los Alamitos politically. Now, I'm making some assumptions here, but it seems politically that the taxpayers of Los Alamitos aren't really fans of paying more taxes. And yet, this project is going to increase taxes because of we're going to need more support, right? More utilities, not just water, but other utilities included to be supported by city workers. The firefighters, I mean, we can't build a whole new neighborhood and not have more support for firefighters, police, and whatever else you can think of. Bottom line, it increases taxes, and the people who have elected the council members and these commissions, I don't know that they're going to be fans of that. So people are going to talk more about the size of this plan, and the high density is the big talking point. But underneath it are these bigger, just looming issues for the state of California or even the taxpayer base in the area. So water and utilities and support, some resources. I don't know that if you listen to the people of Los Alamitos and in this area, I don't see that there's support for that. At least that's my feeling about it. So I want you guys to know.
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's two items on our agenda. There's three. One's a general plan amendment, and the other is a general plan amendment regarding the zoning ordinance. And I have this pile wishing to speak to those. I have these that I'll just go through this. Okay, I have one that just says 4665 Lampson Avenue, and one is a proposed Lampson project. We have no project on our agenda for tonight. Okay, so we're going to be discussing a zone change, and we're going to be discussing our housing element. So for John Lacey, you just have down here 4665 Lampson, if you'd like to come and speak on that.
Name's already been stated, but I'll repeat it. I'm John Lacey.
Lacey.
I'm here on behalf of AYSO Region 159, who has a definite interest in the development mentioned. I want to just reiterate some of the points that were already made as part of the EIR that's going on simultaneously. Our region has been part of the local community for over 40 years, and our mission is to provide world-class youth soccer programs. For more than 20 years, Arbor Park has been the primary facility to provide our community-based soccer programs. In the fall and spring seasons, Arbor Park is a critical facility to our recreational all-star and club soccer programs, and in the summer, we host soccer camps. Our primary season is the fall, when over 1,000 players and their families come together as a community to practice and play soccer. And due to the popularity of our soccer programs at Arbor Park, we've always utilized the parking at the 4665 Lampson office building. Region 159 representatives attended the project scoping meeting and also the open house at the Ayers Hotel. And our concerns have not changed, although we did see some changes in the plans. None of those seem to address our concerns, so I wanted to be able to reiterate those to put them before this committee. Arbor Park has approximately 100 parking spaces, with about 30 of those that we try to set aside to not use so that there's always ample parking for the dog park. AYSO Region 159 also strives to provide adequate parking actually for the dog park, which leaves roughly 70 for our own use at the park, which is nowhere near adequate for our needs. Therefore, our families and volunteers utilizing Arbor Park routinely park and have for, like I said, more than 20 years, parked at 4665 Lampson Avenue. That parking lot provides us with more than 300 additional parking spaces beyond what's available currently at Arbor. And we use them, we use every one of them. And it's important to ensure, for us to ensure that those soccer families are not parking on the neighborhood streets in College Park East. In fact, our commissioner is kind of labeled as a non-starter if we're going to be put in a position where we're going to have our families tempted to be crossing Lampson to get to the park because there's not sufficient parking. That will not be something we'll go forward with. The level of parking, the additional parking that's been proposed by the developer is inadequate for our needs. I'm talking about not just the 70 or 100 spaces that are existing, but the additional spaces that they're currently proposing do not come near meeting our requirements and will interfere with our ability to use that park, and we will probably no longer be able to use it as our primary venue. We request that the city and the developer include parking analysis. This is of course, we would be part of the EIR, but to evaluate how this is going to impact the AYSO Region 159 participants and the use of Arbor Park, and to study whether there has been established prescribed easement due to our persistent and public obvious use, not without permission. Would really get under the law under hostile conditions. While the property was owned by the U.S. government, they neither explicitly provided us the parking lot to Region 159 participants, nor did they communicate that the parking lot could not be used. It is if it's determined that a prescriptive easement for the parking lot has been established, the parking lot at 4665 Lampson Avenue would need to be maintained or equivalent replacements be made available. One possible option for replacement parking would be to add parking spaces at Arbor Park. Currently, there is an access road to Arbor Park that borders 4665.
I'm going to have to interrupt you just for a second. If you can finish it real quick
Sure.
so we can move on. 3 minutes.
I'm sorry?
The 3 minutes is up.
I see, okay. So we propose is expanding the access road also to include an access road on the east side with double head-in parking on both sides. We believe that would probably provide enough parking spaces to meet the 300 spaces that are missing. I'll jump ahead to hit some other concerns.
Well, why don't we go ahead? I'm going to go ahead and cut you off at this point. We're past the 3 minutes, if you don't mind. We've got a lot of people here, so.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah. And it's not on the agenda today, so there'll be ample opportunity at future meetings to
Right, thank
come
you.
back, okay? Nancy Weiss, you have proposed Lampson project, traffic problems on Lampson. You wish to come up? Okay.
I live in College Park East, and my concern is if they're going to put 246 homes there, figuring maybe 2 to 3 cars per home, that's 700 cars going down Lampson. We won't have access to our homes. Have they determined what's going to happen, or can they have fewer homes? It doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
because we can't get to our tract if you have 700 cars or 500, whatever. So is the EIR involved with considering the traffic?
Again, as I said before, we can't get into a give and take on questions and answers. If you attend the meetings, a lot of the questions will be answered, and you can always approach staff during the week for specific questions regarding the EIR or for traffic. Right now, we have no project before us, okay?
When will we have a meeting about the project?
You will be noticed. Notice is given when that happens.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I think that we're just misunderstood that when we came here, we could ask questions and we'd get answers, and I think that's probably the confusion.
Or give input. And question, so are you going to change the zoning for that land tonight?
That is on the agenda.
Okay, so then I think it's appropriate that we all get to speak.
You all will get to, anybody who's filled out a card will get to speak.
Okay, great.
Right now, this is for items that are not on the agenda. We have no project.
Zoning, that if the zoning moves forward.
All right, if you wish to speak, you can fill out a card, you can come up, and you can talk then. I could have the attorney give you a little more in-depth about question and answering. Our hands are tied to a certain extent, so we'll let the attorney deal with that.
So just to clarify, this period, you can go ahead and brief or provide comments. Hello?
You got to pull it closer.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So just to clarify, during this period of time, you have 3 minutes to go ahead and state whatever your concerns or whatever you want to speak, state for the record. It's not a question and answer. What the items that you want to discuss will be noticed for a future hearing, and that at that time they will have a staff report which will provide answers to questions. But at this time, the item's not the agenda, so you are able to speak as to it. It's just there's no answers in response to those questions. So that's the only distinguishing factor, and the time frame is limited to 3 minutes. So anyone can come up, go ahead and speak, but there's just not going to be a response period. That's all.
Okay. So the next item I have is Mary Abosif.
Good evening. My name is Mary Abosif. I'm from College Park East. I am aware of this proposed project. My question is several, actually. I did go to the meeting that they had at Ayers Hotel. I asked the developers, if this does not pass and it is not zoned to be residential, what is a backup plan that you have? They could not give me an answer. Okay, so one of my questions is, if we do not allow them to rezone from commercial to residential, what will the developer's plans be? Number two, I think the commissioner from AYSO who came and spoke on behalf of AYSO. I personally have 4 kids. My children play soccer every season in the fall, and 2 of them play in the spring as well. That park has been an enormous amount of youth and fun for the children in this area, so that they can play soccer, they can have fun, they can get their energy out. I don't know where we would go if it wasn't for AYSO, quite honestly, because my kids only play soccer, okay? We go to Arbor Park, we go to the dog park. There's nowhere else to park if that parking structure is taken away, okay? Number 3, there are only 2 lanes on Lampson going in each direction. Just about 6 weeks ago, there was an accident on Lampson and Candleberry where we enter our tract. Okay, if we have 500 to 700 additional cars on that street, I don't know what you guys are going to do about the traffic. Number 1, leaving to go to work and taking our children and the buses that come in and out. Okay, all of the, not just adults that live in College Park East, our children are going to be affected. Okay, the traffic is a huge issue. Okay. And then the other issue that I have is you're going to have these high-density apartments and townhomes you figure at least 1 to 2 child per home. Okay, how is Los Alamitos going to deal with the students? Okay, where are our kids going to be? You're already maxed out on a student to teacher ratio at this point in a lot of the classes. So what's going to happen when my kids who are in the school district are still in school? You are going to have to absorb at least 400 students. Is there a place to build another school? Are you going to get more teachers? What's the quality of the teachers going to be? Okay, so I would ask that you all consider this and speak with the developers, and I specifically asked them to have a plan B, because I personally am not in favor of this residential community being built.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Jean Orland.
Hi, I'm Jean Orland. I live in College Park East also. If you're going to be, I guess, voting, I would encourage you to then not vote to zone the Lampson area as part of a housing development. But my concerns, I know you can't respond, but I would like you to ask the developers to put it in an EIR, whatever you're going to have for an answer eventually, to talk about sea level rise. I would like the city of Los Alamitos or the developers, or if you can get it from the base, what the sea level will be, because I don't know if it's appropriate to put housing when in 20 years that could be a flooded area. And so I'd like to see a sea level rise study done. I would also like for an agreement to be put into place. I don't know if it's between planning commissions or how that works, but between the city of Los Alamitos and Seal Beach. If that project goes forward, I would like for the city of Los Alamitos to pay permit parking from Seal Beach for all the residents in College Park East. So we are a completely permitted area of, let's say, at least a minimum of 4 permits per household in College Park East, of which Los Alamitos would pay for. And then that way our police department and your police department can go around College Park East and give tickets to all the people who shouldn't be there. And then what previously people have said about the parking, is there some way that the developer could put in tandem parking so that there could be a minimum of 2 spaces per apartment in their design, at least 2 spaces for them? And the only way I could see that is maybe cut off a little bit of the greenery or shrubs and do tandem parking.
Not counting
Thank you.
garages.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's see, Chris Arfwedson.
Good job.
Hi, I'm Christine Arfwedson, 12381 Vicksburg Circle, Parkwood. There are several people in Parkwood that cannot be here because they work and they have children, so I'm speaking for more than just myself. A lot of people have spoken about traffic and the dangers of that and parking, so I won't repeat that. I'm a nursing professor, Cerritos College, adult pediatric medicine, recently retired. I taught nursing for 24 years. I'm concerned about all these other issues, but my main concern also is we are downwind of the LA Long Beach harbor. 40% of all import-exports come in through the harbor. Idling diesel engines, massive air pollution. Downwind 3 power plants, Long Beach. We have a widening of the 405. We're adjacent to the 605. We have children in elementary schools, Weaver, Lee, middle school, Oak School, Los Alamitos High School, where children are exercising outdoors. Now we have Lampson, which is already a highly traveled 2-lane each way. It's almost like a highway now, people going 50, 60 miles an hour, many deaths. The bike lane is a joke. There is no additional signal to make it safe. So I say with all of this safety and air pollution considerations, I don't know, when you start thinking about putting in 500-600 more cars and families, think about their health. Children, asthma, stunted lung development adjacent to freeways is incredible. I worked 24 years at Long Beach Memorial Miller Children's Hospital, and I saw many admissions with asthma and all types of respiratory problems. Adults, cardiovascular disease, cardiopulmonary disease. They're linking air pollution by freeways to dementia. A lot of older people there. Autoimmune disease. So when you think about rezoning this for a high-density project, think about the livability, not only of the people already in Parkwood and College Park East, think about the families coming there and their health, and it matters. They're going to be in your schools. Thanks for listening. Think about this when you're going to rezone.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Enea Ostrich.
I'm handing out the Seal Beach traffic collision report. And good evening to all of you in the Planning Commission and to all who are here. Hi, my name is Enea Ostrich, as has been said, and I reside in College Park East of Seal Beach since 1988. I have a husband and 2 adult children. Tonight I present to you the traffic collision report from the Seal Beach Police Department from the years of 2017 to 2022. It has been condensed to 1 page for you by my son, Stephen. And just in short density of that report, I'm going to let you know that in 2019, there was 3 serious injury accidents. In 2019, 1 fatality. In 2021, 1 serious injury. And in 2022, 1 serious injury in October. And this doesn't include in November of in November of this year, another serious injury accident. And 2 of those accidents was on Candleberry and Lampson, that is. I just want to mention that in history, I believe that Lampson was built with 2 lanes in each side of the median, because where Joint Forces Training Base we see today only allowed so much space. As we know, government says, nope, you can only build this. And I believe that that's why that road is 2 lanes on each side. This is why the median was added, I believe also, because of safety. Throughout the years, made the traffic collisions increased. And the residents complained about the safety to the College Park East councilperson. In my studies online and in articles and whatnot, it said back in 1989, there was 2 fatal accidents within 10 days. And they added a safety sign, big LED, that flashes 12 inches your speed. They also added rocks on the blind curve and in other places because of these fatal accidents over all these years, from 1989 to the present day. There was also a suggestion from the city to add a flashing red light at Heather at one point. That didn't last long. And this dense project, I don't believe, is going to help anything if there was a flashing red light or even the current light that's there, because of the turnaround for the right turn only. Also, on the design team, I met Les Johnson, and I've taken a look at his background, and his background is that he has worked for this city as well as Seal Beach, which is great to push through this project, but it's not great for College Park East. I also have been told that if we gather up too much protest, this project will be scrapped.
Sorry.
I thank you. I thank you, but I am definitely against the project, but I am glad that you listened.
Great.
So, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Marty Sprung. Did we just move into an action item without addressing it?
Hi, everybody. I wasn't prepared to make a speech, and it sounds like tonight's not for a lot of what you're going to hear tonight. I think I'm just going to say I'm opposed to the project, opposed to the zoning. If it does go through, I would hope that you guys really think this through and reduce the numbers of units. There's going to be a large impact on. By the way, I'm in College Park East, Seal Beach. There's going to be a large impact on us, and so essentially, it's important that when we do this project, if this project goes through, do it right the first time, because once this thing's built, we can't undo it, right? So that's why I really appreciate you make sure that you guys take that into account.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that ends this first batch here. We'll move on the agenda to item 5, which is our consent calendar. If someone would like to make a motion to
I'll make
approve.
a motion to approve. I'll
Okay.
second it.
Second, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Okay, moving on to item 6. This is a general plan amendment to our housing element. It's a resolution of recommendation to the City Council for adoption of a negative declaration pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act and approval of a draft comprehensive update of the city's housing element for the period of 2021 to 2029. So we have a staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I will provide the items here, and then afterwards we have our planner, Tom, here for any questions. So State Government Code Section 65300 requires the city to adopt a general plan to guide long-range development of a community. A general plan contains 7 mandatory elements, including land use, of course, circulation, conservation, open space, safety, noise, and housing. The housing element that's part of the general plan must be updated every 8 years and is reviewed and certified by the state HCD department. State law requires that each housing element accommodates and facilitates developments of housings to meet a city's fair share housing need. Tonight, again, like the chair stated, the Planning Commission will consider a resolution of recommendation to the City Council for approval of the draft housing element and California Environmental Quality Act, or also known as CEQA documents, for the reporting period of the 6th cycle, which we consider the years 2021 and 2029. Okay. As you recall, Commission, this is the 3rd time that you will be seeing the housing element. We've had 2 previous public hearings. The first one being on, let's see here, I believe November of 21. And then we sent it up to the state. They made some comments. We came back. The second one was in August of 2022. Again, we made some revisions. We sent it up to the state. They sent it back. And then now we made up the revisions, and the state HCD has tentatively agreed upon the revisions that we made. So again, tonight we're asking the commission to consider recommending to the city council approval of the housing element. So again, I just want to provide a little background here. Is that California HCD is responsible for the final determination of the regional allocation. So what they've done here is they went up and down the state of California to reach out to regional organizations to develop a methodology specific to their region. So our region in Los Alamitos, we're part of Orange County. The Southern California Association of Government, SCAG, who also oversees Orange County, Los Angeles County, Imperial County, Riverside County, and San Bernardino, Ventura, developed a methodology and basically distributed the housing numbers, or what we like to call RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment numbers. And so I want to remind the Planning Commission that we were given the allocation of 767 units for our basically 2 square mile city. So again, priorities, goals, and objectives are established in the housing element through citizens' input. Again, this is the 3rd public hearing that we've had, and then we're planning for the future housing of the city. Citizen participation is important, and we provided that through various means, social media. We took in ads in the paper. We put it on our city's website, et cetera. And so, again, I'm not going to go over every change to the housing element. Again, this is the 3rd one that we've seen. And then it was in your report that was given to you. But if you have any questions, again, Tom and I are here to answer. But again, we're here to ask recommendation for City Council. The City Council, if recommended, will convene and look at and approve and send it up to HCD in the January meeting. It's not scheduled for the meeting that's coming up on Monday, next Monday. We're going to go before council in the January meeting. But again, we're asking for any questions or feedback from the commission. Thank you.
Okay, we have any questions from the commission? I have a few. Okay, I have a few questions. Are we under a timeline for that from the state?
Yes, sir. We are under a timeline. It was, I believe, due in October of this year.
Of last year.
Of last year. But we've gone through the cycle, so they kind of given us a little bit of leeway because they know, again, we submitted it. This is going to be our 3rd submittal, so they know that we've been working on it.
And this is a mandate. The RHNA numbers, the Regional Housing Assessment, each city is allocated a certain number, and like you just said, 700 and some odd for Los Alamitos, that we have to locate in an already built-out city, like most cities, 99.9% built out.
Correct.
And so all the other cities in the state have to follow the same protocol,
That's correct, sir. Yeah, every city in the state of California has a RHNA number attached to them, and county as well.
All right. And does each city have to identify by location and number of units the properties that will be part of their RHNA allocation?
Correct me if I'm Tom, if I'm wrong, but I believe so, sir. So when you submit your housing element, there is a listing of the proposed site and the number affixed to that according to the RHNA numbers.
Okay, and we have that chart in here. Okay.
For Los Angeles, yes.
And that includes other cities, right? North of us, Cypress, they've got a large project going on, like on Catella there. Heavily
Correct.
traveled
So Cypress does have a housing element, and yes, they would list their sites as well, yes.
Okay, and also as well Seal Beach has to.
I assume so, yes.
Okay, do you know the approximate locations of their properties that they've identified
I do, sir. As part of what happened, is same way like we did with our housing element, we sent our housing element to the neighboring cities. So we have received Cypress, we have received Seal Beach, so I do know some of their locations, yes.
Can you list some of them in Seal Beach that we have that are close to Los Al?
I can.
Go ahead.
Yes, okay. Without getting into like really detail, because again, we're in Los Alamitos, I don't want to talk about Seal Beach per se, but Old Ranch Country Club has a total number of 120 units affixed to that site.
On Lampson?
On Lampson.
Right.
Old Ranch Town Center, which is Lampson / Los Alamitos Boulevard, is 200.
All right.
And then, again, affecting Los Alamitos Boulevard, Shops at Rossmore, they have a fixed 400 units to that site.
On the Shops at Rossmore, this would be in the parking lot, probably in the parking lot behind.
Yes, it's
All right.
in the parking lot.
Abutting Rossmore.
Correct.
That's true.
All right. And then, so that's the ones we have there.
Yes, that's the one that's closest to Los Alamitos, sir.
All right, fine. Okay. That's all the questions I have regarding from staff. I don't know if anybody else does. Okay. No. excuse me, we'll get it open in just a second, all right? Oh, yeah, definitely, yes. Okay, so do we have any other comments? No, okay.
So real quick, so just to reiterate, this was set from Sacramento, it's mandatory. This was something that state legislator voted on that we have to comply with, correct?
Yeah, so the process is, again, they reached out to SCAG. SCAG came up with a methodology. They have fixed Los Alamitos with the 767 units. Again, we're technically 4.25 square miles, but the military base takes up 2.25 square miles. So we're basically 2 square miles. I know this because the city of Los Alamitos did a protest in terms of the numbers affixed to us. So I know that we only have 0.01% vacant land in the city. And so trying to get 767 units in a 2 square mile city was very difficult. Like the chair said, we're built out. So we had to go out there and did a lot of legwork to kind of, approach property owners and everything to try to spread out the 767 units. We did a strategic thing to spread it out. We hit it up in our town center. We hit it up on locations on Cerritos. We hit up locations on Catella, and of course, Lampson and Los Al Boulevard as well. Knowing that, we have to have internally staff here along with our consultant to make sure that we had appropriate housing next to transit, next to freeway access, next to school access, etc. So yes, it is a mandate that we have to fill up the 767 units and plan for these units in the city of Los Alamitos.
Okay. All right. Okay. No comments from the audience until we open it up. At that point, you can come up to the podium and then you can address us so we all can hear you. Okay.
A comment for
Go ahead.
Ron. Could
Yes.
you mention too how many years this mandate is over?
So the sixth cycle goes from 2021 to 2029.
Okay. Any other? Okay. All right. At this time, I will open this portion of the meeting for public comment. Keep in mind, we're on 6A, which is the general plan amendment regarding the housing element, which is not the zoning. The zoning proposal is item B. So most of these, I think all of them pertain to the zoning change. So if there is somebody who would like to come forward and if they wish to speak to this item, which pertains to our housing element and our regional housing needs assessment, the 700 and some odd units, and the locations within the city of Los Alamitos, I would imagine this is your time to come up and talk about that. This is not the vote on the zoning change. Okay.
Hi there. My name is Carrie Stahoviak. I live off of Ironwood next to Heather Park. I'm a millennial. I was able to purchase my house in 2019 without any financial help, put myself through college. I've done what I'm supposed to do, right? And I picked a neighborhood and I wanted to live here because of all of the things that this specific city has to offer. My husband is in law enforcement, so I'm intimately familiar with how low-income housing affects neighborhoods and communities. I also am super familiar working for a city myself. My family members are blue collar and work for cities. Familiar with how this will strain Seal Beach's resources in terms of, like we said, fire, which I know is county, still affects Seal Beach residents. Law enforcement, this is landlocked. There's no way Los Al PD or sheriffs are going to be able to get to calls in a timely fashion. There's no way that any of the companies that pay for the emergency services for EMT services are going to come from Los Al. The parking enforcement is going to be Seal Beach PD. I think it's wrong, and I think it's quite frankly backhanded to come and say that you're going to pay for it for Los Al and affect directly Seal Beach residents. I think it's very difficult for us to process that because it's going to affect our quality of life. I don't have any kids at this time, but I do feel strongly about the school system. Rezoning this into be a residential area is going to put a strain on those families. It's not going to help these kids. It's not going to help education. We have a crisis in California already with the education, which I think we all care about because it seems like you guys all may have kids or grandkids. I did also want to bring up that rezoning to a residential area is a safety concern, not just because of lamps and traffic, but a lot of times, and a lot of my friends and close family members and relatives, as I said, are in law enforcement, and in their experience, low-income housing is not a safe place to live. People who can afford to not live there choose to. So it's people who are forced into situations that might not be the safest conditions, and it's not helpful to put them in more strain to not be able to have law enforcement on deck to help them. We don't have the resources in Seal Beach to help another 1,000 people. It's not just the parking. It's not just the safety on Lampson. It's the safety of our officers. It's the safety of the rest of the community. I think you guys need to be taking that into consideration because this is not affecting your city directly. It's affecting mine. Thank you.
Hi, can I talk about the housing element? I just heard through the grapevine, oh, I'm Jean Orland again, that the city, you're not the only one. Seal Beach is having it, Cypress is having it. They're all having, all Southern California cities are having this problem with the housing element. And I heard under the table that some cities are thinking about fighting it and just not doing it. I know that there's very bad ramifications for you guys, for all cities. But if you could get in touch with those cities that are going to not do the number that they suggested and do like maybe your original number, it's just a thought that, you know, so that you could vote no on the housing element, but still do what you wanted to do and not do the craziness that has been a part of all of Southern California cities. I mean, just think about it for the no vote. You can change it.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on item 6A? This is the general plan amendment for the housing element.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak here. My name is Bobby. I'm a resident of College Park East. I'm currently a professor at California State University. I teach leadership, marketing, but one of my classes that I teach is leadership. I teach ethical leadership as well. And after reading with some of the process that's going through here, through the city development, it got me concerning. I actually spoke about it in my class. I'm having students do a project on it. We even do a questionnaire. It's pretty funny to kind of see my real life into the university at Cal State Fullerton. So one of my concerns I have is Les Johnson, I believe his name is, who used to work for the city, who is now a consultant for the city, who is going to be managing the EIR report, which is going to say, this is going to be safe, this is what's going to work. How is that not a conflict of interest? That is my main concern. Second thing, if the city of Los Alamitos was not receiving $2 million for this project, would you be voting to change this to a residential zoning? Probably not. So those are two of the concerns that I'm actually talking about in my ethical leadership course. 100% of my students saw this as unethical. So I just wanted to bring that up as a point that we as a community know what's happening. We know about Les Johnson. We know about the city receiving kickbacks. And I understand it's part of the process. I used to be in commercial real estate as well. To change this into a residential development with the way Lampson is does not make sense whatsoever, especially with the fact, with the way the developers have this building, is the fact that you could only make one right turn out. In order to go back down towards Valley View, you need to make a U-turn at Heather Park. Have any of you ever made a U-turn at Heather Park? No. Go make a U-turn at Heather Park and then come back and tell us this is going to be safe. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Helen. I'm going to go with a little bit different viewpoint. First of all, I feel like we're left in the dark. We're coming here with questions, with the understanding or the pre-thought that you guys might be answering some of the questions. So it's like we present them, but we don't know what you're thinking. So you've heard a lot of people talk about the cons, the concern for their neighborhood, the concern for their family, the concern for the kids. What I'm not totally convinced with is that you guys have that same concern. So that worries us because if you're going to vote on whether you're going to redistrict it or whatever the word is to rezone it without us being involved, how fair is that? We're in the dark. Fill us in. Thank you. That's what I have to say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right.
Good evening. My name is Dan Brandt. Just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Los Alamitos at the military housing. I currently live in College Park East. You know, come from a family that barely got by to be there and worked really hard to get to College Park East. And I'll tell you, I worked for the city for 23 years of La Salle. I was a police officer here for 11 years, or 12 years, and I'm very familiar with what I'm going to talk about. Maybe you can, I have some experience in this, and I want you to listen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the fatalities that we have on Lampson. Because when I went to College Park East, I knew that it was a dangerous street, right? I knew there was one sidewalk. I knew there's almost no bike lanes. It's not walkable. There's no mass transit. You're there, you're there. That's all you got, right, in that community. But I knew it was safe. That's why I moved my family there. And what I'm going to tell you is I did a deep dive on the stats and the fatalities. I knew that street was dangerous when I was a police officer. I responded to many accidents on Lampson. I'll tell you. So let me give you some of the stats. I'm going to break it down for you. From 2000 to 2019, there was 4 fatalities on Lampson. And if you add Lampson and Manly, which is maybe 100, 200 feet from our city, is right there on that curve, they had another 2. So we're at 6, okay? All in Seal Beach, 8 of those were on PCH, 5 were on Seal Beach Boulevard, and Lampson were the other ones. In Westminster, Lampson, the 2-lane highway, small 2-lane highway, okay? All of the city of Los Alamitos during that time frame had 9 fatals. So we had 6 on 1.5 miles. We had 6 fatals. That doesn't bring all the serious traffic collisions in, right? So that's a huge issue for me. And then if you want to say, we talked about it, there was 3 fatalities in 2 years in the 80s, late 80s, 3 within 2 years, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tell you a little story, because I can give you numbers all day, okay? Back in 2008, there was a family riding their bike on the sidewalk over by where now I think it's a senior living home. Drunk driver flipped over, killed the mother of an autistic kid, right? So that's not a number, that's a person. So when we're talking about the fatalities here, that's why we're concerned. I understand the state wants to say, oh, you have to put this housing in, we have to turn commercial, they're commercial corridors. And I know, I've talked to Seal Beach, I've talked to La Salle. You act like you can't do anything, that's not true, right? There's an environmental impact. You have a choice what to do, right? And that choice is that when the state says this, that commercial property is not what they're talking about. I did a deep dive on the developers, you know, all the affordable housing and the high density. They put it next to mass transit. They put it next to, they had underground parking. They had all sorts of stuff. That's not what this is. That's not what this is. I want you to come out to Lampson, drive that. Come out, try to take a left out of Heather. Try to take a left out of any of those streets. Try to make a U-turn at Heather. Unless you're an expert driver, you're probably doing a 3-point turn, right? And that's coming around a curve. You got cars coming around a curve. You're making a U-turn, right? And then there's boulders and trees and everything. There's no visibility. So it comes down to the fact that this is a safety issue. That's why I'm here for my family. And that's the only reason I'm here. When I heard this was coming, and I know the developers are trying to play a game. They said La Salle wanted 355 units, right? And they say, oh, we're the nice guys. We're only going to do 260 something. I don't buy that. You're not going 4 stories like they said you're going to do, right? The reality is you guys have a choice. And I'm upset right now because this is for my family. And the reality is that when we have more fatalities on that street, I'm going to come back here. Because the reality is that there's been 6 in that time frame. That is a lot. And all of Seal Beach in that whole time, there's 21. So that's where my sticking points are. I'm going to tell you that there's so many other things. The parking, we're going to have 250, 300 cars in our neighborhood every single night. And during the day, if there's soccer, they're not going to park in our neighborhood. They're going to park right there during the day and in our neighborhood at night, right? And we have no longer have access to Heather Park because the whole Heather Park is going to be surrounded by cars. And people that are and there's no park in that community that they're trying to do. They're going to be crossing the street to come to Heather Park. We're not going to have any access. Our parks are already beat up. I just spent tons of time trying to get the city to redo Heather Park. It's so bad. So now we're going to have this development as it stands with 14,000 square feet of open space. That's 2.5 lots or 2 lots in La Salle. where's the playground structure, right? We've talked about the soccer. We've talked about, you know, so many other things, but to put 600 cars, and just so we're clear, the people that are these fatalities, if we kept the commercial, those aren't the people that are creating the fatalities. I've been to all these collisions. I did the deep dive on all those fatal collisions, and the reality is that they come and go from a commercial property during the day is way different than having residential and the different kind of collisions that occur. So that's where I want you guys to understand that there's actually people behind it, not just numbers. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Peter, and I live in College Park East. I just have two points to make. We understand the mandate. We understand we need more housing. What doesn't make sense to me is that you already have a comped development, Parkwood, or Parkland, 100 units, garages, ample parking, a traffic signal. That works. You have 100 right there. Why would you want to build something 2.5 times larger, right? I mean, well, there's already a model that works that Lampson can absorb. Why would you want to build something 2.5 times larger? So I urge and appeal that you reconsider the scope and size of the project. Secondly, when you signal that you're going to build this kind of density to the 2,000 Lampson households, you know, you're basically telling them that, you know, you don't care about those residents. And I know you care about those residents because they go to restaurants in Los Alamitos, they shop in Los Alamitos. I mean, it's a big group of people. So every time, and consumers, so every time that there's a traffic jam that many other people have cited, every time there's a parking fiasco with AYSO, every time there's a towed vehicle, an accident, God forbid a fatality, they won't blame Sacramento. They're not going to blame Seal Beach. They're going to blame Los Alamitos. And again, over time, that's going to erode the relationship between the people of Lampson, those 2,000 households, and their relationship with Los Alamitos. So I just urge you to reconsider the scale and size of this project. You have a comp, 100 townhouses with garages, with parking spaces, and a traffic signal. Don't build the 2.5 times size project. Build the one that works and keep the peace and keep that relationship with those 2,000 consumer households on Lampson. Thank you very much.
Good. Yeah, no, it's all right. Let them go.
Hi, my name is Ruth Schultz, and nobody has represented West Garden Grove yet. That's me. And my 3 friends. I've moved here in '69 from New York, or Long Island, raised 3 sons. They're all men now. It's been a great time. I hate to see this come in here. I mean, from everybody has said what the problem will be. It's enough to not go the commercial. I really, really, really pray that you won't do this. Please influence them to keep it the nice place it is, safe place. These kids are growing up. We have enough racing cars out on the streets. We don't need more. So I just pray that you will take this important step and recommend it not to be commercial. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm here to represent for Cypress. My question is the rumor is they're putting the toll road at the 405. So everyone's going to be coming off and going down Lampson to get onto Seal Beach to bypass the toll road cost. So do we have any studies on that? Also, is the base actually buying off on this, on how close this high density is going to be overlooking a military base? This is probably one of our only active military bases for the nation. Is an emergency hub because we no longer have any other bases. So do we have the studies of that? That's all been cleared. And why are you guys voting yes for this? Vote no. Make Sacramento make Sacramento tell you you're going to change this to a residential instead of a commercial, because, hey, that could take maybe a year or 2 years. Sacramento's really slow. And by then, we might get rid of Gavin Newsom, and we can get a different governor, and we can just be all happy again. So vote no, and make them tell you. Vote no. Don't do their work for them.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jeff Smith. I live in College Park East. I'm here to talk about the rezoning, city off Lampson, and the subsequent housing development that is going to be proposed. I want to talk about three things: traffic, parking, and recreation. The number of cars on Lampson would increase exponentially. This is one of the main thoroughfares, as you guys know, to get from the Seal Beach Boulevard to Valley View. If you increase the car population by hundreds, I believe the traffic will be significantly worse. Specifically, traffic to and from school. We have a family of 5, 3 children who all attend Los Alamitos schools. I believe this development would dramatically affect my family's ability to get our children to school in a timely manner. You may say, we'll just leave early. Yes, we could do that, but a family of 3 getting ready in the morning isn't an easy feat. So it makes it more difficult with the amount of traffic that will happen from it. Also, only a right turn, specifically out of the low-income housing. Once again, I know other people have talked about it with regards to the U-turn. We live right off of Heather. And we often go to Arbor Park or the dog park, and having consistent U-turns poses a safety risk without question. Emergency response, once again, also discussed, is a major sticking point. More traffic leads to less quick response, and when you're dealing with emergencies and seconds are immensely important, this cannot be overlooked. Parking. The amount of parking spots in relation to the residences for this new development is grossly underrepresented. Additionally, the garage parking spots that are being allocated for the single-family homes will not actually be used for parking, maybe some of them, but instead used for storage, further reducing the amount of available spots. As I already mentioned, I live right off of Heather. Those spots off of Heather will be used by those residences to park in our neighborhood, and that will be 100% impact. Thus, not allowing me to park in front of even my own house. Now, that may seem like a first world problem. I don't know. While the convenience of being able to park in front of my house is important to me, that is not the most impactful thing that this housing development will present. 3 children, they play in the streets. Now, you might say, well, there's a park right there, but not everything you can do at the park, like ride bikes, play basketball, play hockey, things like that. So with the increase in the amount of traffic, I'm really, really concerned about my kids being struck by a car or other cars getting hit by the cars that are coming in that don't even live in the neighborhood.
Excuse me, you're going to have to, your time is up. I'll give you about another 10 seconds if you want to.
Last thing is recreation. The play structure is nothing at Arbor Park. They will be coming over to Heather Park, which is already dilapidated. I know there's plans to kind of rejuvenate it, but with more people, those facilities will be they'll be used more frequently and thus deteriorate more quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, again, we're not talking about the zoning item, which is okay. You can keep talking, but the zoning item will be next. Right now, we're talking about getting ready to vote on the housing element amendment, which at this point does not, which is different from the zoning. So, but go ahead.
My name is
Have your
Don
name, please.
Schwartz. I am a retired history professor from Cal State Long Beach, and I live in College Park East. And in addition to all the concerns that have already been expressed, I wonder, is there any plan for an air quality assessment? Given we've already mentioned the 405, given the addition of 700 cars and the pollution that comes from air traffic coming from the base. Also, for those of us living in College Park East near Lampson, July 4th is a nightmare because people come from all over to see the fireworks, and they park in our blocking our driveways, and it just seems to me that because there's inadequate parking planned for this project, that's going to be a constant. It's not just going to be a headache for July 4th. Thank you.
Okay. All right. One more here. Okay.
I have a question about
Can we have your name first?
This is Mary Abosafe again from College Park East. You were mentioning the mandate by the state for all these housing that needs to be done. My understanding is that that was only if there's a new development in the city. Is that correct? No? Can you maybe shed some light on that, Mr. Noda, and clarify?
Not.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, so RENA is a mandate that the city has a plan for the units, like, in our site, right? So let's say you have a site, right, and there is a multi-family structure there, like a 4-unit apartment building, right? And we say that, okay, then we talk with the property owner and we say, okay, maybe in 10 years or 5 years, 5 years, that they decide to put like another unit there to make it from 4 to 8, we plan on that.
Okay.
So we don't have to necessarily have to, build anything, or we necessarily don't have to, like you stated, only on new projects or anything like that.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding. As it stands, if that land stays commercially zoned, the city of Los Alamitos or Seal Beach or whoever does not have to create 700 or some odd housing units.
No, so
Okay.
again, just to make it real simple, there's 246 that's planned in that development. If that does not go, then the staff here with our consultant have to look for another area in the city to accommodate that 246.
So maybe that should be the solution, is finding somewhere else and leaving this commercially zoned. And if I didn't make my point earlier too, Heather is the drop-off and pickup point for the school buses. I can't imagine what the traffic is going to look like in the morning with all the kids trying to get to school on time if there's more traffic in that area, in addition to probably more car accidents. So my suggestion is leave it zoned commercial and look for somewhere else if you have to find more housing for these people.
Okay.
Chair DeBolt, Vice Chair Lowe, Commissioners, neighbors, and guests. My name is Michael Gatto. I live in College Park East. I'm a husband and a father of 4 precious children. In fact, I brought a picture of them. You've heard a lot of concerns tonight about the proposed Lampson project, of which I am against. I want to echo the traffic concerns, the environmental concerns, such as pollution, the parking issues, and more. More traffic obviously means more emergency personnel that will have a more difficult time getting to emergency situations. In addition, we have some of our closest friends who have a daughter who has cystic fibrosis. They moved to College Park East in particular to protect her lungs for the quality of air. The additional pollution would compromise the health of this precious girl and others whose life depends on quality air daily. You have heard from residents from both cities tonight and other cities. So please remember that this is not just a Seal Beach issue. It's also a Los Alamitos issue. I urge you to reconsider zoning the Lampson area to become residential. I urge you not to move forward with the project. Do not let the blood be on your hands. Stand up to Sacramento. Do not accept the number. Do not rezone the area. Stand up for what is right and vote no. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just remind, this item is not project-specific. There is no project before us. This is the, we're not talking about this, you're speaking to item 6A. 6B is the zoning. If you want to wait about 5 minutes, we'll get to that, and then we'll have a whole raft of people here that'll be able to talk about the zoning.
Minutes early, so I'll just get it while I'm at.
Go ahead.
I've seen the effects of rezoning in a large city. I won't name it, but it has a large port connected to it. I've seen where buildings were, I call them insta-slums, went up. So they took down single-family houses, rezoned it for multi, and so, yes, they did include parking. And the reality is that not everyone knows what's going on in lower-income neighborhoods and developments. So what ends up happening is they zone it, and they put an 8-unit complex in, and they put in 8, maybe 12 parking spots, assuming people have X amount of cars. Even in some of these lower-income neighborhoods where not everyone that lives there has a car, and that's fine. I've seen a lot of people getting walked to school. Again, I worked in a very financially restricted neighborhood for a long time. What people don't realize is when you have low income, and this is going to sound terrible, you have multiple families, multiple generations sharing these units. I've seen it. I've seen people, and subletting. I've gone into places where people were living in the kitchen, in the nook. So I've not seen where there has not been spillover from the cars. The traffic is horrendous. There are people that are afraid, and this is exaggerated, there are parts in this other city where people are afraid to leave their houses on the weekends because of the overbuilding and the overcrowding and the overparking. So again, I'm not getting into the politics of anything, but I'm just saying my experience is rezoning, although it sounds good, and Mr. Nada, I know what you're talking about. I won't say I work for a government, so I know what you're dealing with. I have to deal with it also. But professionally, I understand it. Emotionally, I want to present some reality, and that's what doesn't happen. You don't see what really happens. You can say, we have X amount of people and X amount of parking places. That ends up rolling over, and it becomes out of control. And then other people mention, well, then who's going to take care of it? I'm not going to debate that either, but that's just something to consider. These situations tend to get abused. Thank you.
Can we get your name, please, for the record?
Eric Stahoviak.
All right. Okay. I'll go ahead and close the public comment on item 6A. Do we have any other questions or comments of staff? Any discussion up here regarding this?
No, just to make sure they understand this has nothing to do with zoning or that property whatsoever.
Just one, if I could ask staff just to touch on low income, on the income. What is the income for low income, moderate, et cetera, if you have those numbers? Approximate, just.
You know, I don't like to use the word low income. We, in all the documents, it's called affordable. But according to the state, affordable for a family of 4 is if you make $122,000 or less. So if you make, as a family of 4, your income is $122,000 or less, you're considered eligible for affordable unit in the state of California.
All right. And this is not subsidized housing?
No,
in general.
affordable, again, you know, affordable housing, I'm not saying it can or can't, but it's not subsidized housing, it's not Section 8 housing. You know, can a person, a family living, you know, providing, you know, dependent on government subsidy living there? Absolutely, but a family that does not live, you know, is not dependent on government subsidy can also live in an affordable unit as well.
Okay, great. Okay, so anyway, so at this point, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution, this latest iteration that we've had before us 3 other times? So.
I'll make the motion to adopt it.
Okay, this is for the general plan amendment for the housing element. Do we have a second? I'll second the motion. All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2022-13, recommending that the city council adopt a negative declaration and approve the general plan amendment updating the Los Alamitos housing element. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Okay. Moving on, okay, to item 6B. This is, okay. You want to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break right now for, we'll resume here in 5 minutes. Need to Okay, if you could, everybody take your seats, or we'll go ahead and proceed with the meeting here.
Okay. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, right.
All right. Okay, guys. All right. Okay, moving on to item 6B. This is a general plan amendment 22-02, zoning ordinance amendment 22-03. And this is a consideration of a draft ordinance to permit creation of a new R4 zoning district in the city and rezoning certain properties to allow higher density and modify the town center mixed-use zoning to allow higher density through a general plan amendment. Okay, if we could have a staff report on that.
Yes, Chair DeBolt and members of the Planning Commission, General Plan Amendment 2202 and Zoning Ordinance Amendment 2203 are what you're considering here. Tonight, the Planning Commission considers the fulfillment of 2 of the housing element actions that you just voted to send up to the City Council. And how the housing element actions are required by the state to be accomplished before the adoption of the housing element can be determined. So these are what are required by the state for us to approve in order for them to say, yes, your housing element will pass. And as we know, we've brought it to you 3 times. This is what they said we had to do in order to get it passed. So policy action 4.4 is one of the housing element policies that we'll fulfill tonight if it is passed. That means to create an R4 zoning and rezoning to allow higher density. The R4 zone is called R4 because we have 3 other residential zones. This is the highest density one. Policy action 4.5 modifies the town center mixed use zoning to allow higher density. To implement the R4 and amend the town center mixed use zone, the following amendments to the zoning code are proposed. 1, incorporate a description of the R4 zone into the list of the residential zones. That's what we'll do first. Then add permitted land uses for the R zone, which are identical to the R3 zone. R4 specific development standards are added, and like where setbacks are and things like that. Minor changes from R3 standards are proposed for the R4 zone to acknowledge that it takes that to have greater density. The density range of the R4 zone is 30 to 36 dwelling units per acre. A new design standards for family housing section will be added to the zoning code in order to be specific more for the R4 zone. The town center mixed use zone is amended as required by the prior approved town center strategic plan that we talked about earlier this year. The zoning map is amended by changing the following properties, zoning and land use designations. 4655 Lampson Avenue, which has been discussed much tonight, is changing from community facilities, not commercial as people have been saying,
Right.
to R3. R3 is not R4, it is the lower density.
Right.
Laurel Park is changing to R4 from community facilities. 3191 Catella, this where we are tonight, and City Hall are being changed from, this is general commercial, and it's going to be changed to R3.
R4.
R4, I'm sorry, R4. And 4142 Cerritos Avenue, which is an industrial building, will be changed from planned light industrial to R4. 5030 through 5084 Catella Avenue, which is where Starting Gate is, will change from general commercial to R4. And Cerritos Avenue, where the Latter-day Saint Church is, they have approached us and asked to change their property to R4 as well. To implement the R4 zone, the general plan land use element and map are amended to include the R4 zone. And staff recommends that the commission open a hearing for the zoning and general plan changes shown in the draft city council ordinance and resolution that you have with you tonight, and if appropriate, approve the resolution of recommendation to the city council. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Have any questions of staff? Yeah.
I had one.
Go ahead.
I was just curious. We talked about the maximum permitted density. How come we have a range on that? Why wouldn't it just be one number? A maximum would be just a maximum would be one number.
In order to meet the RENA numbers, there is what the state wants us to do is a range, and a developer can go from the lowest part of that range to the upper part of that range in order to meet our RENA numbers for that particular zone. We have a little wiggle room where on each site in order to meet the RENA numbers. So,
Right, okay.
yeah.
Any other?
So
That
the
was a
difference
bad way to
between R3 and R4 is 25 to 36 units?
Yeah, R3 is 20 to 25 dwelling units per acre, and R4 will be 30 to 36.
All right. I have a couple of questions. Okay, so the R3 zone that we have 6 sites that we're dealing with tonight, all within the city. The one at the south end of the city on Lampson is proposed to be changed to R3 versus changing the ones up this way to R4.
Yeah. Right.
So it'll be the least dense, okay, of the zone. Is this the current zone for everything, all the multifamily units, pretty much all the multifamily units?
They're R3.
They are R3.
Yeah.
And we haven't, and we're not changing that. This is not as far as the development standards.
Right.
Okay, so, and let's talk about development standards just a little bit. So the R3 zone has a range of 20 to 25 units per acre, and that's current within the city, anywhere,
Correct.
anywhere within the city.
Yes, sir.
All right. And along with that, any type of development that goes in, we have development standards for each zone, correct?
Correct.
All right, which gets into building height. In this case, R3 is, the maximum height is 35 feet, correct?
Correct.
All right, as opposed to the R4, which is at 40.
Right.
All right. And the other examples of development standards would be landscaping, setbacks, parking, et cetera, that vary. And so it's not only numbers of units, but those numbers of units have to fit within the framework of the other development standards, correct?
Correct, yes.
So when a developer comes in with a project, okay, he might do an estimate for his based on a certain number of units, but once we start applying the development standards that are specific to that zone, those numbers can change.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, because, you know, it's not a matter of cramming them in as
Right.
tight as they can. We have other standards that, and we've done this before.
Right.
We've had people come in and they fit, but once we start, you know, where's the space for the, you know, the number of, our spaces are 19 feet, they're not 18. Our spaces are, our setbacks are 5 feet or 10 feet, and you cannot encroach into that. And consequently, you may lose a unit, you know, and so
Correct.
there's other standards that fall into play other than just the zone.
Right.
Correct, okay. So,
Can I ask a follow-up to that, Art?
go ahead.
So if the portion that's affordable housing, does that allow them to, are there lower can they have less parking because it's affordable housing?
Based on the number of affordable housing units that are placed in that particular property, you get a certain number of development standards that are waived, basically. So the more affordable units you place on a property, the more of those development standards get waived.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and, okay, so when I open it up, you can come up here and address, but your questions probably will not be answered. They will be taken into consideration by Mr. Noda, who's been working heavily with his pen there, I noticed, so. So anyway, and keep in mind, this is not a project-specific
Right.
Decision. This is a zone, okay? And any project that comes in, once we designate a zone, then the projects can come in.
We compare it to that zone then. at
That
point.
fit into that zone. So, as we've said all along, we have no project before us today. This is a vote strictly on the zone that will allow us to go ahead and complete the housing element. This is the way that we will, I guess, help to implement that mandate by the state. And this is affecting us citywide up here. None of us live, I don't believe, in Parkwood or in it affects us all. It affects everybody. We're all in the same boat together. All the different cities, all the different people. So anyway, with that.
I have one more question.
One more question.
So the R4, like the 5030 to 5084 Catella, that's Catella and Los Alamitos Boulevard, right?
No, that's.
That's where the starting
where
gate
the
is.
starting gate is, yeah.
Oh, that's the
That's
starting.
by
gate.
Siboney. Cattell and
Okay.
Siboney, around that area.
So,
Correct.
but R4 is not mixed use, like retail on the bottom.
No, but they can if they
be.
would like to.
They can,
be,
but
yes.
it's, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a follow-up to that.
Go ahead.
So, I was looking at the charts with the live-work unit, and it talks about the R2 zone being administrative use permit, but R3 and R4 aren't
Right.
for the live-work unit. I'm just surprised that they all wouldn't be administrative use permit.
Yeah, it's different based on the zone. Based on R2 is less dense, so therefore they can fit a live-work unit without much trouble. Whereas in the R3 and R4, being more dense, having customers come to your house would be more problematic with the larger buildings and stuff like that.
But the town center wouldn't be. I'm thinking of like the town center.
The town center, those would be. It's a different animal. It's going to be more of a downtown sort of feeling. So people that generally move to downtown type areas understand that things are a little bit more tight and.
Okay, so it doesn't apply.
And so it doesn't apply to.
Okay.
I mean, they can do live work there as well.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Okay, at this time, I will open the hearing. It's a public hearing, so anybody wishing to come up and comment. Now, I do have, I have a stack of cards. Did you fill out a card?
I did, sir.
All right, go ahead and come on up and give your name and.
My name is Tom Borsich. My wife's here also. We're 29-year residents of College Park East. We've raised our kids here. We see the project. I get all the land use. My question is, why is it that the Lampson project, or that space, took an R3, which is the 23 to 25 units per acre, versus a smaller density? Who chose that specific zoning and density? And I'll give you a little background. So I purchased a home, or we purchased a home in Long Beach, 1983. Fantastic little craftsman bungalow. 6 months later, builder comes in and bulldozes the 5 properties next door. Density, all that stuff. 4-story condo, 1.5 parking spaces per unit. So you can see the density. Of course, you've got 2 and 3 bedroom condos. Well, you've got at least 2 drivers per property with 1.5 parking spots. So all that overflow, so this is a perfect example of what happened to us in Long Beach. All the overflow went into the streets, which is going to go into College Park East. This may seem kind of harsh, and I know you are trying to, run City of Los Alamitos. And it's unfortunate that it's got to be put in somebody else's backyard. The base creates a natural barrier from your city. You're not going to be affected by this. We are. So I strongly, strongly urge you, people come into College Park East, you go south from the base or this project, CPE, east or west. So this is going to have a big impact. A number of people that have talked here, I drive past their kids when they're playing in the street. It's a big deal. It really makes a difference. We're fortunate. Our kids are all raised, although we do have a granddaughter who lives with us. She's going to be affected by this. When I look at the density that could change CPE, for instance, commercial vehicles, you're going to have an HOA. HOA says you can't park commercial vehicles, and this is the Davis-Sterling Act. I think you probably know it. The HOA says you can't park a commercial vehicle on the streets in the projects. Typically, the HOA can allow it. So then where does that commercial vehicle go? It'll go into College Park East.
Your time is up, so go ahead. I'll need you to wrap it up.
Okay.
I've got.
I urge you a couple things. Reconsider the density, or don't vote for this particular project to go to this high density. It matters. Thank you.
Okay.
Different item I can speak on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So once again, Dan
You know
Brandt.
what, if you don't mind, I've got 2, 4, I've got 6 people who haven't spoken yet.
Absolutely.
And you can come back. I mean, if you, this item is up, but why don't we, give everybody a chance. We'll work through it, and then.
Absolutely.
Then if you want to go again. So I have Dan here.
I think that's him.
Was that you, Dan? All right, okay, great, thank you. All right, Jeff Smith? You're good, all right. Mike Anderson? Okay. No Mike Anderson, okay. Then Bobby P.
I want to speak again, but I'll wait.
All right, okay, I'll put you down here. Okay, and then Ruth Schultz. All right. Whipping right through these, okay. Lisa Belfius.
That's me.
Okay.
I just want to encourage you guys to vote no for this. I was really blown away that we're going to lose the starting gate. I love that place. Have you not seen what's going across the street? And then now you guys want to build? Are you guys competing with them on how to screw up the traffic on Catella? I'm affected in Cypress off of Catella and Lampson now. I could go down Lampson maybe 2-3 times a day. And again, that 405 is probably going to ruin the traffic right there. So you guys got to, and I cannot believe that the base is buying off on all this. I mean, it's so close to our national security. How are we getting this by? I mean, you guys got to find something else to do besides going by a base. Or you guys could be maybe grandfathered and say you have the largest base on the West Coast that you should not be governed under what Gavin Newsom wants us to do. So vote no.
Okay. Patty Senecal.
Sir?
You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Patty Senecal, College Park East, about 8 years now. I want to speak to the record in terms of cumulative impacts. We have sensitive receptors and the senior home on the top of Lampson. We are in the path of the airport. We have the base. We have the 405. We just got the sound wall moved in, and now we have the high-speed lane. And we have crushing delays on Seal Beach Boulevard, getting on and off the freeways. We've got tons of idling going on. And so I want to make sure that we talk about the cumulative impacts to the residents on this project or proposed project. I have black dust in my house constantly dusting. It is brake dust. Brake dust is very dangerous. It goes into the water. It's in our homes. And so again, what I am concerned about is the high amount of traffic that uses Lampson when the freeway's backed up, and also Los Alamitos Boulevard when the 605 is backed up. People hop off. Everybody knows, go to Catella, whatever, cut through, cut down Lampson, pick up the 22 further down. So in terms of these projects, I want to make sure that cumulative impacts are assessed, not just the other elements of the CEQA, but we need to look at cumulative impacts on this project. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go back to Dan. Dan, you're up.
Okay, so I want to try to, I know you can't answer questions, but, when I worked for the city, I was actually the union president too, so I worked closely with city council and different people, and I understood rezoning in the fact that, as I would be like, oh man, we're going to put development, that means more money for the city, that means more stability for us, right? So, well, it does. The reality is that I know we tried to do the project here, and that didn't work out, right? We tried to put the commercial property here where we're sitting. That didn't work out. These other projects that we're looking at that you're talking about zoning, like the starting gate and these different ones, those aren't buildable, right? Someone owns those properties right now. That's cool that we're zoning them, but this is a buildable project. So we're going to talk about voting for a buildable project. I know you haven't got the EIR. That's going to take up till June, July, whatever that is. But that's why there's concern. I was here when it was like, oh, what do we do with Arrowhead Products? What do we do with these different sites that we could put housing on? Or we can do commercial property when we were fighting with Cypress back in the day, because they're putting all the commercial property on, the retail, and we're fighting with them, and then now we're suing them, getting money from them because they're impacting Los Alamitos, right? The reality is trust me, Seal Beach is going to hear about this too. And when Seal Beach tries to do what you're talking about, you don't think that College Park East residents are going to be concerned? Rossmore residents? Absolutely. So I get where we're saying where hands are tied, but it shouldn't be a tit for tat, right? The reality is we vote to say, oh yes, let's do this. Seal Beach is doing it. These other cities are doing it. The reality is that these other projects we're saying we're going to zone and that we're lumping in together, that we can't just pull that one out because of our housing element says that's part of it. Well, we say yes to this because all these other ones that are included, well, that's the buildable one. The other ones are they could sit there for however, I don't know. You can't answer questions, so I can't ask you how many years till that lease is up on that property, or there's a developer that wants to come in. They want to approach the city, right? I don't know that. Right, and that's questions that should be answered, because we're lumping this project in with all those other rezonings that aren't buildable, that a developer didn't buy the land to come build it, right? And okay, I see what you're saying. We went from R4 to R3, right? Like other places are R4. Well, they're R4. I'm sure those can change later before they build it. This is R3. We're voting on that right now. And I can tell you if this is somewhat close to what is being proposed, and I get what you're saying, that we can make adjustments depending on R3 and what their development is and their plans they're showing. It may adjust it a little bit. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that adjustment looks like. I can tell you I know what that plan looks like. And if we were talking about half that development, right, with parking, with things like that, that's maybe something that could be brought to the table. Okay. So here's part of the problem too, right? And that's why people are frustrated, because the information that's been out there, right? I know people got 500 feet of the development, what they have to do. That was the first thing during the scoping meeting. So people didn't know about it, right? Then we had the Ayers Hotel. I know a lot of the residents here went, and the reality is like, they didn't get the information. It was a sales pitch. And we get it. It was a sales pitch. People have seen the plans, but they don't have the answers to what, because trust me, we get it. Developer comes in at this level, and the final is wherever it is. And that's what people want to know, where that final is. We'd rather keep it commercial because it's worked, right? As far as not impacting us. I don't want any residential, because that's going to have more impacts on the streets. It's going to have more impacts on our parking and all that. But we don't have the answers to that, right? I don't know how you get that answers out there, or we can talk about it, but people are concerned because they're seeing this project where it's at. And like I said, the zoning, this is buildable now, right? That's what, I wish you could answer how many of those other zonings that we're doing, there's a developer bringing in a project right now. That'd be a good question that we would want to know. So without answers, I'm done, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Chair, can I say something? So I know that a lot of the public here is wanting answers, and we are abided by Brown Act rules. So we can answer a lot of the questions and provide some background information. I encourage you. You see our associate planner here. He's handing out cards. I encourage you to call and schedule a meeting with either Tom or myself. We will gladly sit down with you and answer some of your questions. You have to understand that we as city staff, we answer questions pertaining to city items like zoning or the housing element. If you want questions specific about the site that you are probably most here for, the Lampson site, I cannot answer that per se. I can give you fact, like this is how many units are going in there to propose. This is the aesthetic of how it looks. But you have to talk to the developer and that team themselves. But in terms of zoning, you like Mr. Dan here said here, that about the other items in the city, about what kind of movement we have. Because again, we can answer that because we had to provide the state HCD about. When we propose a site, we have to propose a site that is likely going to be redeveloped. We cannot come up with the site that says, oh, we're going to just pick a site and we're just going to say it's not going to have zero chance of being impacted or redeveloped. So we as a city, because we're built out, if you notice here, we're giving up green space to meet our housing element. We're giving up the site that you're sitting on, City Hall, to give up housing element. And again, I'm not going to go into more specifics. The lady beside me is probably mad at that I already went this far. But again, I encourage you to reach out to us, and we will be glad to sit down with you one-on-one and answer questions to the best we can. Okay?
All right.
One quick question. In all due respect, I understand what you're going through. I consulted with a city council member in Long Beach on Long Beach's housing plan in North Long Beach. So I
Talk,
understand-
talk to him after the meeting or after hours, because, okay,
No,
you're out.
I just have one question. Why did it go to R, why can't it be R2 versus R3?
Again, I can speak to you,
But see, here's,
you know, and stuff.
you're gonna take a vote, and that screws us. I mean,
You're gonna have to have a seat and
but nobody's giving us answers.
But that's a legitimate question that's going to affect everybody in this room. You guys are making a vote on something that's going to affect us, but you won't answer his very legitimate question. Why can't the zone be moved from R3 to R2 to R1? That's just a very legitimate question.
excuse me.
And
Okay, no, that's it. We'll go ahead and go to.
Can I ask one more question?
We'll go to Bobby P. Bobby, if you're still here.
Again, hello, my name is Dr. Papoulias, professor at Cal State Fullerton. I'd like to touch on the unethical situation as well too. As I mentioned before, I was a commercial real estate broker. Just to kind of give you my experience, I worked in the commercial real estate field on developments like this, residential, multifamily, for almost 10 years. I've had my real estate license when I was 18. I understand developments, I understand home flipping, I understand a lot of it. Rather than saying anything or asking everybody to get riled up, I have questions, and I know you're not going to be able to answer them now. When you purchase a commercial property, especially one of this magnitude of 28 million, over 28 million, at a time with very high interest rates, you have a building already laid out, yet it hasn't even been changed to residential yet. That's a question to think about. How is all this momentum occurring before this has even been changed to residential? We have a lawyer here. I would be very curious what would happen if we subpoenaed people to see what kind of conversations that we've had with the developer and people before. But that is a question to think about. How can a $28 million project with a negative flow cap rate be purchased and have drawings already made before the land has been approved to be residential? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to come?
Just a quick question for clarification. So, Derek Boyer, College Park East. Mr. Noda, you said that what percentage of Los Alamitos is built out?
Los Alamitos only has 0.01% free space.
0.01% free space. And you guys we're sitting around talking about taking that 0.01% of space and ruining it for the rest of us. I mean, I understand I'm saying that figuratively, but the details are showing.
And I clarify, 0.01 is empty land.
Right.
Empty land.
But you're taking that little bit of land that we have around us that gives us some breathing room, and you're impacting it in such a great way. From what I understand, it seems like it's basically going to happen. But why can't it be reduced from R3 to R2 or R1? That's my comment, because you're taking 0.01 or whatever it is, that tiny bit of land, and ruining the rest of the 99%, or at least degrading it for the rest of us.
Bobby P. was just talking. Well, it really makes us all wonder. $26.5 million. Mr. Oliver, you were quoted in the Sun newspaper saying, "It just fell in our lap. We had no idea." If you had no idea, then one wonders, what is your job? I have to say, $26.5 million, they don't just buy that knowing it's not going to be rezoned. You're going to rezone it. We aren't stupid. Les Johnson, former city manager here, he knows how the process works. He's now working for the developers. That doesn't pass the smell test. Think about it from our standpoint. And I'm from Parkwood, and we vote.
Okay.
Hi again, Carrie Stahoviak. As I mentioned before, College Park East resident. I currently work in construction. I have a degree in recreation and leisure studies from Cal State Long Beach. I am intimately familiar and have done excessive amounts of study and research on green space, quality of life, how these different facilities in different areas affect quality of life. I know we've beat to death almost the parking, the safety, the traffic, resources from the public, but I do want to also explain to everyone here how construction works. We have kind of touched on how this works. Somebody buys a property with the understanding we're going to rezone one way or another. Now, whether you guys are party to that, I don't know. We don't get to know, right? Construction doesn't just happen. There's all sorts of different things that go on. I'm particularly involved with a project at a university that has incredible standards and incredible stipends, and you would not believe the conversations that I've had, try to manipulate those things to get what we want pushed through the door. And you're telling me that we're going to stick to whatever, kind of, good faith arrangement that we have. We don't have any say in this. I mean, citizens care about what's going on in our city. That's very clear. But you're telling me that these construction and the development people are going to care about our city and be responsible for that? No. It's simply unethical to put this place in a facility that's going to be, or in a location that's going to be a problem for another city. It's not your responsibility. You're not going to have to see, touch, or feel it. It's unethical, and it's unethical for you to expect those people, the owners, the developers, the construction companies, to be responsible for the fallout, including construction equipment that's going to destroy it, the traffic of the commercial vehicles, noise, sound, all kinds of detriment to all kinds of utilities. So I want to remind everybody that this is not just, 600 people are now going to arrive in this area. This is going to be a $400 million project. It's going to go on for 4 years. It's going to take up time, sound, and space from construction workers. We're not going to be able to specify it's a woman-owned small business or a minority-owned business. We're not going to be able to specify the amount of green space that's on the rooftop of this area. We're not going to be able to specify how green this building is. We don't have any control over that because we're not owners. So the impacts are only negative for the people in the surrounding areas. There is no positive for anybody in the area, and there's no negative impact to your city, and I think that's unethical.
Okay.
Coming from the corporate world, I'm in here scratching my head. Whenever
Your
I
name
go,
again, please, for the record.
Helen.
Helen.
I'm actually from Rossmore, and I'm told that my vote, my opinion doesn't count. But help me understand why it doesn't count where I pay for the property tax of the schools. I help pay for the teacher salaries. So yes, my vote counts. But from the corporate world, when I go into a meeting, it's two-sided. For you guys to say we're protected by law, that we don't have to answer your questions or fill you in, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Come on, you guys. We aren't kids. This is our life. This is our cities. There's several cities here that work gel really well. You talk to the retail stores. You ask them, do you realize low income's coming in here? It's a problem. They're like, oh my God, no. You know how much that theft is already in the stores already with that $900 steal or more or less? He says, we all have problems. I suggest or advise, put this decision on hold because you guys are not hearing us. You're going to be retired and you're going to enjoy this extra income you're going to get. And I guarantee you, the government is paying you guys additional for accepting this. The developers are getting additional funding for accepting this. It's stated in Newsom's plan. Just because what Newsom says doesn't mean you have to be his puppets. Put it on Newsom's land. Sorry if I sounded irritated, but I hope you guys get the gist. We're not happy because you're not listening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We'll move to the back to the commission. Anybody have any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What considerations went in when deciding the different variances between those 10 issues that we're going to be deciding on versus R3, R4, has direct correlation with the housing element, correct?
Are you stating specifically, I just want clarification on your question, sir. What consideration per site, why we designate R3 and R4? So again, we have arena number at 767, and as you are aware, when we came in, I believe in our first housing element, we listed separate, different sites, all right, on the initial housing element. And as part of the outreach, we have to let the property owner know that we're putting their site into the housing element, and then we're going to go down this road of either rezoning, again, to like an R3 and R4, or going from a commercial to a residential, right? We've had property owners come in and say that they did not want to be rezoned, okay? And so then we had to go back out to the street and kind of look at and work with, our own commercial realtor to say, are there any other sites in the city that is open to rezoning to residential? All right. So then, if you are aware, we came back a second time. We had listed sites on there, and then again, we had property owners come in and say we didn't want our property to go on there. So we had to go back again, and then so the list that you have here are owners that are basically saying that they're okay with the rezone. And so then we did a math in terms of, we put an R4 here, and the acreage, this is how many numbers we could get towards that site. We go to the next site, we go to the next site, and then again, we try to spread it out evenly across the city where, like, the town center mixed use, right, which is, again, as you're aware, a commission that is in the, Los Al and Catella, basically. We cannot put 767 units in there because, again, we're going to have, people that are neighborhoods surrounding that area, like Old Town West, Old Town East, our apartment row area, saying that, again, a lot of the comments you heard here, traffic, et cetera, right? So then we had to strategically kind of, again, kind of like, it was difficult because it was like, all right, which property would let us rezone? And then after that is, okay, how do we strategically put sites around the city to make the least impact to one specific neighborhood? So that's how we came up with the R3 to the R4 zoning, again, depending on each specific site.
And the Lampson site, that's 11.4 acres, I believe, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And they have a range between 20 and 25 on the R3.
Correct.
So even if we decide, hey, go to R2, they have 60 to 20 units per dwelling acre, right? So you're essentially saying 20 even in R2.
So again, they're listed as, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, is they are listed at R3, but the density on there right now is at a 20 per acre.
So that's essentially an R2 with their present design.
Correct, but we are zoning that as an R3.
Okay. And the vote tonight is not site-specific, or not project-specific.
Correct.
Correct, again.
In other words, we're setting this up, as one of the members of the public talked about, they may or may not ever be developed. Okay.
That is, potentially, yes.
But the vote tonight is not project-specific.
Yes.
We're going to establish an R4 zone, and the potential, if somebody were to come in with a project, the maximum is up to 36 units on the R4 and maximum of 25 on an R3, whatever project comes in.
Yes, sir.
If it were to come in.
Correct.
And a question for the attorney about, somebody said, let's just say no to Sacramento. This city did say no to Sacramento a while back when Newsom declared California a sanctuary state, and Los Alamitos was the only city that actually adopted it. Didn't do a resolution, but actually adopted an ordinance to basically say we're not going to comply. We're going to cooperate with ICE. We're going to do this, that, and the other. And the full weight of Sacramento and came down on the second smallest city in Orange County, to try to take a stand. What's the ramifications of just saying no to Sacramento? on something like this? What's the fallout if we don't have a completed housing element?
Yeah,
And,
I could speak on that, sir, if you don't mind. So, we do get state funding from the state. We get Measure M, SB1 money. We do apply for CDBG money, and those help with the infrastructure of the city. They will withhold those fundings from the city that we get annually. Secondly, they will fine the city, right? And then the fine will be in the six figures.
okay. All right.
We also went through it when we tried to fight the zoning, the districting for our city council election.
Right.
And we spent a lot of legal fees on that also.
Right. So anyway, any other questions or comments regarding?
What we're talking tonight has been discussed before. We started on this particular A and B at what year and when? Can we kind of go back through that real quick? It's over a year, I can't remember exactly.
So the first thing what we did, I want to go back is, we were handed out our RENA number in 2020. All right. I started my tenure here in Development Services in July of 2020. That was my first task, was to protest our RENA number. And so that started that journey. So we did protest. Took a lot of, and then we got denied our protest. So I believe, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, is we started again with the whole housing element and the rezoning in October of 21?
We tried to hire consultants to help us fill out the housing element beginning in July last year. And every single city was doing their housing element at the same time. So we weren't able to find a consultant to do it. And we found a consultant in January of this year who is willing to take up helping us. So, yeah.
Okay, so.
And if other cities were to also say that they weren't going to follow, they would be under the same withdrawal of funds. So it's not just isolated.
We talk about noticing a little bit. We got a lot of people here that it was a surprise, and so let's talk about noticing. We're in Los Alamitos, they're in Seal Beach. I know for projects that involve land issues, specific projects, we have a 500-foot radius that we have to notice. What happens when we cross city lines? Or let's say not cross city lines, we're not crossing a city line, but we abut a neighboring city. What is the noticing for that? Now, we've had at least 3 meetings on this, and when we started this housing element and this project, was there any notice given to the city of Seal Beach?
So again, I want a clarification. When we talk about the housing element and the zoning, right, it's citywide. Okay, so we did it where we put it on our city website, we put it on the city social media.
Right.
We have a weekly email blast that sends out. Right. We put it on there. We sent out postcards to every resident in Los Alamitos and property owner, and we also put advertisement in the Event News Enterprise about our housing element, our R4.
Okay. All right. Was there?
What you're talking about, I believe, sir, is technically if there is a project development, a specific project development, it is actually mandated at 300 feet that you notice. So you only have to notice 300 feet around the property site.
Right.
But we do sometimes ask for a 500 feet. But that's typical. We ask for 500 feet.
All right. Okay. So was there any notices given to the city of Seal Beach proper?
In terms of our housing element?
To the items that, yes, to the housing element, to our...
Absolutely, sir.
All right.
Our housing element was sent out to, we have a myriad. If you look in our report there, we have a bunch of addresses. Okay. City of Seal Beach, City of Cypress. We have to go through the Native American tribes, to the base, to the school district, et cetera. Correct.
Okay. And so those notices are given out to the city, not mailed to the residents of Seal Beach.
Correct.
That would be up to the city of Seal Beach or Cypress to notify their residents that
Again,
that the house, that
I'm
there's
talking about the housing
there's a
element.
component of the housing element that's going to
That is correct, sir.
possibly affect their constituents, their city.
Yes, that would be up to that jurisdiction.
It's up to them to notify their residents of things that may impact them, so those residents could do what these residents are doing tonight, okay, and maybe would have had some input maybe
Correct.
2 or 3 or 4 months earlier. So, okay, so that's all I have to say. If anybody would like to make a motion regarding the proposed resolution, let me get it here. This is a,
I have one quick question. I know
Go
that
ahead.
we're making a motion potentially to have the one R3 site, the rest R4 sites. If a developer does come in by any of these properties, proposes something that more is closer to R1 or R2, even if it's an R4, that's still acceptable because R4 can have R2 elements, right? We aren't limited to a minimum number, or how does that work?
So again, when we change it there, the initial thing here is, let's say we have a site and it's listed as an R4. The developer would know that they would probably have to do an R4. Now, can they come in and request the city to do a zone change, a general plan amendment change? Yes, they can. And that will go before, the bodies to determine if at that time, the planning commission or city council is open to, again, going from an R4 to, like you stated, sir, an R2 or an R1. But again, I want to add that, again, if a site is R4 and they're listed at 120 units and they're coming in and say, I want an R2 and it's 60 units, again, to meet our RENA number, we will then have to look for the numbers and put it in another property elsewhere.
Yeah. So this is one of the issues I'm personally having with I know we're not talking about a specific site here, but unfortunately we
project,
are because
not a
that's
specific
project.
Talking about a specific site.
But
sites are specific, yeah.
You said they're coming in at R3. Now, what happens if a project gets put on Lampson's site and we decide their setbacks are bad or don't conform to our city requirements, and they're forced to take away 4 units because of that? Now they aren't in, you said they're at 20 units per acre, which is the minimum setback for R3. Well, now they have to drop down to an R2. Okay, because they just lost 4 units and lost the numbers. What happens at that point? Do we have to drop them back to an R2?
No.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, no, the zoning code enforces that they are in the R4 or R3 or R2 zone. And in order for them to go lower, they would have to change the zone for that particular unit. We figure out the setbacks and all that stuff on the property based on how many units we know can go on that property. And so usually a developer maxes it out as much as they can and goes right up to those setbacks and meets our code. So, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Generally before it comes to us.
Correct, yeah. They don't want to waste money.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't bring us something that doesn't, usually fit our code. There are some developers that don't understand, but generally large developers and stuff that would build on these types of things, they know what size it should be and what setbacks are and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other?
So if that's the case, and I'm sorry, but I know we're not talking about a specific project, but again, we have plans for a specific project that is at 20. And if R2 is 20, why aren't we limiting them to say 20 and having it at R2? It is curious as to why we are allowing them to potentially expand their project on that site if it still falls within our numbers.
So you understand that if they did R2, that would require us to find other places for the.
So what, so why is that if, so, excuse me, hey, I'm talking.
Well, hey, just hang on.
Sorry.
Please, let him.
Can you explain why we would, if it still conforms to the housing element because of the number of houses, why would it not be?
If they conform to the housing element, they are meeting the density range. I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Well, if they're present, if.
Okay,
Let me ask, so, there, again, in an R1, R2, R3, R4 zone, it's not just the density, right? It's also the building standards, right? So again, an R4, I'm just giving you an example, it can be the height at 40 feet, but an R3 is at 35. So again, you could go in there and say, you know, again, we have a range, and then you could say, okay, we're gonna put this many numbers, but technically it's an R, you know, 3, but we want to have that height. You
So
see?
instead of
that's why
25
it's a
feet, they're allowed to go to
development
35
standard,
feet.
So each zone or zoning, R1, R2, R3, R4, has different development standards connected to each one.
And when a project comes before this commission and city council, project specific, we'll be able to determine, yes, we approve the project at 20 or 25 or whatever it might be within that required zoning, correct?
That is correct.
So by doing an R3 is simply saying we are conforming to R3 zoning requirements regarding height, density, everything else, not necessarily that we're going to max everything out or approve a maxed out project, but that we are allowing them to go that specific height.
Right.
Okay.
And we don't, since we don't have the project
Exactly.
before us.
And that's why I didn't want to put the project
I've seen-
in there.
I've seen a site plan.
But-
But we don't have that project, and so all we are is setting the framework for, and assigning a specific zone, and in order to facilitate and implement the ability to meet the arena numbers as part of the housing element that we are mandated to do. Correct? Correct.
Sir.
All right, thank you.
I have a quick question.
No, the floor is closed. We'll, enough has been
If
said.
you approve
Sir,
the three,
sir, we're,
can the builder sue the city if we don't approve
Huh?
the full project?
oh, excuse
The
me.
public comments is now closed.
The public comments are closed, yes. Okay, so we have could have a motion to adopt resolution 2022-14. That's to recommend, we're going to amend the general plan, land use element, and to implement the zones. We have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Sorry, Chair, can we just clarify with the motion?
Motion to approve.
Well, the recommended action,
There's three here.
we got, no, we're on 6B. Okay, is consideration of a draft ordinance to permit the creation of new R4 zoning district in the city and reserve certain properties to allow the higher density and modify the town center mixed-use zoning to allow higher density through a general plan amendment, GPA 22-02, and zoning ordinance amendment, ZOA 22-03. We have that motion? Do we implement that?
I made the motion, yes.
Okay, we have a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
I don't know. I will approve it.
It's already.
So we have it.
can do.
Okay, this has been approved, okay. And we'll move on to the next item.
I don't know how to get them to understand what that was about. They don't understand.
There's no problem. If you can't do it one place, go find it somewhere else. That's your job. You don't ruin a neighborhood.
Okay. Do we have any items from the Community Development Services Department?
Can you give them a minute? it clear?
I do. I only have a couple things.
right.
Again, I just want to wish
You
the
wanna-
commission.
Wait.
So let's wait a minute.
Okay.
We'll let the Krauses.
Art, I'm sorry for yelling at them, but I was just trying
No,
to
that's
talk.
fine,
and-
that's fine.
Sorry. I know that's your job to
I have-
quiet
I
them,
have-
but I was just like,
Mike's still on. He's still on. He's still on. You can hear it outside.
All
I
right,
just said I'm sorry to Art.
hang on.
I'm just telling you.
Let's let these people evacuate here.
It's real simple. Just happy holidays, happy New Year. I will see you in 2023.
No, I think we have one more meeting, don't we? We got one more meeting on the 28th, don't we?
Don't we?
No.
No, we moved it up.
We moved
This
it
one,
up.
that's today.
We moved that
Oh,
meeting
I
up
looked-
because of the holidays.
Oh.
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll let him come to the
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
Yeah,
No,
come
it's still on
on.
the website, I think.
We probably will have to have a special meeting in January, though, to do the,
No, what you probably saw was because it's a regular scheduled meeting, so eventually she will cancel that regular scheduled meeting because we moved it to today for a special meeting because of the
Okay,
holidays.
and,
Okay?
Okay. Any other from the staff? No? How about commissioner reports?
I have nothing.
Everybody have a really safe holiday, please.
And I have one from my wife. Thank you for planting the trees along LaSalle Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I saw that
I
yesterday.
did see that.
My wife says, that's the first time in 25 or something years that trees have been planted, and you can see them. They're actually big enough.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to give personal plugs?
What?
Are we allowed to give personal plugs in a commissioner report?
Well,
I'm opening up my new office
your-
on Pine in LaSalle Plaza, so I'm on the second floor,
right.
right by the music center. So I will have an office there as of next week.
great. Did you get your business license?
I do. I already have one in the city of LaSalle, actually.
I'm going to charge you to move it.
That was
I already
good.
have one.
All right.
One favor, though. When I drive in Cypress down Valley View Boulevard, they made little mountains and in their mediums. Please, let's not do that. It's so hard to see oncoming traffic.
Because you're in a Corvette.
Well, I understand that.
That is true.
Is that it? Okay, so I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Everybody have a
All
Merry
right.
Christmas, Happy
You
New
too.
Year.
Happy holidays.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for